We'll just kind of start brief background about Regent, how it started. I know there's plenty of stuff out there, but would just love to hear another, quick background on kind of the civilian sector first.
Sure thing. So I'm Billy Thalheimer. Sort of started here, co-founder and CEO is Regent. Backgrounds as a aerospace engineer. I was working in some commercial space companies. Went over to aviation. I was really interested in mobility and transportation. I was initially working for a Boeing subsidiary in sort of the early days of eVTOL, and said, "I love this electrification technology. There's so much application here." But I see these big challenges on both range of these electric systems and also the certification pathway. And so that's what sort of led to dusting off this concept of the wing and ground vehicle, looking back at the old Chronoplan saying, hey, if we throw all this new technology on it, the electrification, the digital flight controls, importantly, hydrofoils to solve the wave tolerance problem, sort of pack all that together, we have a sea glider. So Regent builds sea gliders. Sea gliders are a new mode of transportation, hybrid between a boat and a plane, technically. And for the pilots listening who understand this part, it is a hydrofoiling wing and ground effect vehicle. So we're staying over water at all times. We float by a dock, foil to come up to speed, take off from those foils and fly in the ground effect. So that cushion of air within a wingspan of the water. Coastal mobility and maritime mobility applications. So dual use company, we have 10 billion in our commercial orders at this point, and are working with the Marine Corps right now on a logistics asset.
That's awesome. So that's, I guess, one thing that I'm curious about the pilot versus mariner. Is your intended pilot to be a pilot or more of a mariner who actually flies it?
Yeah, so wing and ground vessels are vessels under Coast Guard jurisdiction. And so too are the captains of the vessels. They're maritime captains and not pilots. For sea gliders specifically, we really leverage digital flight control systems. So it's a fly-by-wire system, with triple redundant computer systems. So we've actually, and this was sort of somewhat painful as a pilot myself and my co-founder, a lot of the early team, we've actually abstracted away a lot of the aircraft controls so that the only controls you have on a sea glider are boat controls. It's left and right, fast and slow. So whether you're floating, foiling, or flying, you are not directly controlling altitude. You're not controlling pitch, roll, any of these things. It's driving like a boat. And when you're foiling, the hydrofoils are automatically keeping you on that plane 5 feet over the water with the hydrofoils generating the lift. And then when you come out and you fly, it locks you in at 30 feet over the water, and left will bank your wings and coordinate your turn, but you're still driving like a boat, left and right, fast and slow.
That's cool. That you guys kind of have taken away all the pilot task loading and just made it being able to drive a car or a boat, probably more a boat, I guess. But yeah,
Exactly. And you think about sort of where is the risk and where's the danger and where have the incidents and fatalities arisen in sort of the history of aviation. And it is often human error. And the dangerous part of flying, because it is human controlled, is flying low. Like that's what they teach you from the first day of flight school. And so when you're flying low, when you're taking off and landing, like your full concentration is on controlling the airplane, and your eyes are down and you're looking at the whole balance. And that is not the best way to navigate large distances. We interviewed, actually, there's not many, but there are some past, wing and ground pilots, and they've flown it like airplanes, and they're essentially landing the airplane the whole time they've been flying. So we can sort of unlock that now because we have very robust sensors and flight control systems so that you can do what a human is good at, which is navigating and communicating and thinking ahead of potential failures and mitigations for those failures, and then let the sea glider digitally control itself.
okay, that's cool. So in terms of your commercial aspects, I've spoken with a couple people who are into the commercial ferries, and it seems very bespoke industry. This ferry needs this size of passengers, this ferry needs that size. Are you guys planning to do some bespoke stuff, or is it going to be, hey, here's our Viceroy, 12 passengers, or kind of how that works?
Yeah, it is one product to start. So the Viceroy is our first sea glider product. That's 12 passengers, two crew in the front, about 15,000 pounds or 3,500 pounds of payload. And it's actually the same product we sell to both our commercial and our defense customers. Although in defense, we have variants with hybridization for longer range and with autonomy capability to take the human crew out. but still the same overall craft, the same vehicle for both commercial and defense customers. We're also working on a larger version that we call Monarch. So that's 100 passengers, or about 100,000 pound gross, 20,000 pounds of payload or so. So that'll be coming after this. The ground effect scales very well, like larger wingspan, more efficiency, and also, larger boat, smaller waves by equivalent. So this technology actually scales really well to the larger dimensions.
Okay, cool. For the Monarch, are you guys looking to compete at all with like that Liberty Lifter program or separate idea?
Yeah. Liberty Lifter was an interesting one. I was actually pretty vocal on a few social media platforms about how I felt the Liberty Lifter program was pretty misguided and sort of far away from the needs of the warfighter. What was great about Liberty Lifter is that I think Wing and Ground is back. I think it is actually a perfect platform for our capability gaps in Indo-Pacific to be able to have aircraft speed, but ability to operate on water like a boat and be able to fly at low altitude where not everyone is necessarily looking for you. So I think it's a great application. Obviously, we're building one and we've had tremendous interest. Liberty Lifter itself, though, had sort of unique aspects like the size of it, which meant a very expensive program, and it wasn't really clear that you needed to go that big from the get-go. And also, the Liberty Lifter was supposed to also be able to fly at 10,000 feet. So it's like, why are you building a wing and ground platform that's also an airplane? We are really optimizing our design around flying in that low altitude space. So you lose some of that optimization if you're trying to build something that can fly up and down.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine that they're kind of completely different wing designs and propulsion systems that if you're trying to do both, then you're not doing one very well.
Exactly, exactly.
Then I guess we could kind of segue then into that defense idea you guys launched or announced at Reindustrialize this year, Region Defense. We'd love just to hear about that, your thoughts on the Indo-Pacific. And obviously that's one of your guys' main points, how you kind of came onto that thesis, and then where you're kind of going from there.
Yeah, well, we sort of founded with that initial focus of commercial, like getting from, we found in the Boston area, we're in Providence, Rhode Island now. So like getting around the Northeast, say Boston and New York, Rhode Island and New York, like that's a pain. And there are these routes all over the world, San Francisco, LA, getting around Florida, getting around wherever. Like these routes exist all over the world. And so like we sort of started with that commercial pain point, but then very quickly we realized like, hey, we're building this vehicle that can operate from anywhere in the water, even in a high sea state, can go very fast, is very affordable, is very easy to operate, and is likely hard to see and certainly hard to hear. There's going to be defense interest in that platform. And so pretty early on, began conversations. Actually, SOCOM was our first partner, and we did a credo with them that we're actually sort of just planning on getting into now on the signature characterization of the Sea Glider. Flying low, can it potentially be below some of the long range radar systems and hiding in that water surface clutter? Also, some of the acoustic characterization, because these electric motors make it incredibly quiet. But then our largest partner to date has been with the Marine Corps. We've been working with the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab since early 2023 on about 15 million now in contracts with them. Initially focused on contested logistics. That was sort of the main primary mission from, Commandant General Smith and on down through the Marine Corps. Contested logistics, one of the key capability gaps we're working on solving through Indo-Pac. So being able to carry 3,500 pounds with, the ease of operation of a boat, the affordability to be able to buy hundreds of these platforms and distribute them throughout Indo-Pac, like that was a lot of value. And so Regent Defense was really realizing like, hey, this is growing. It's not just about this one mission with this one customer anymore, but other branches of DoD are interested in this, and we should actually be allocating more resources to this, because it's not just the electric vehicle. We should be investing in hybridization so we can get 1,600 miles of range instead of the 180 on the battery system, in automation to get the human crew out of harm's way, and in multiple size platforms. So not just Viceroy and Monarch on the large size, but actually taking initially it was a quarter scale prototype that we put out on the water to demonstrate float foil fly that we did really early on in sort of the early days of Regent, actually turning that into an autonomous platform itself as sort of a surface and air vehicle. So we call that Squire, the USAV. It's kind of both.
That's cool. Yeah, I think the Indo-Pacific is something that I write a ton about, just the distances, logistics, like you mentioned, contested logistics. It took something like 74 uh, aircraft to bring one Patriot battalion to the Middle East. So like now, once we start talking about what's going to happen in the Indo-Pacific and the
Yeah.
numbers of things that we're going to need is huge. So having island littoral craft, I think, is going to be very cool. In terms of other defense aspects, I see depending on the signature, I'm not sure how much if you guys are planning to do any signature testing on that, but making it more of a kinetic platform, or are you guys looking to be more of just logistics, medevac, ISR type stuff?
I'd say all the above in terms of the mission. So on the signature side, we have this hypothesis that because we're flying very low to the surface of the water, but we're not disrupting the water column at all, so we won't show up on sonar. But we have this strong hypothesis that we'll actually have a very low radar signature, not because of stealth, but just because of altitude and operations. Hard to see us flying so low. So we're going to get into measuring that. I expect over the next year or so, now that we have this full scale vehicle actually in operations and under testing. But then in terms of the mission sets, this has really been growing, right? Region Defense is about expanding sea glider technology and application to multiple mission sets. So where the initial focus was contested logistics and medevac, we're now growing into launched effects as well. So how can the sea glider become a mothership for UAV, USV, UV as well? Can we be dropping things off the wing, kicking things out of the back that can perform these other missions? So now the sea glider is the delivery system, and then we can clandestinely and efficiently bring large loads of launched effects closer to shore to enemy targets. And then additionally, with that Squire, with that small vehicle, uncrewed, attritable, very low cost, certainly thinking about having ordnance as payload and being able to actually weaponize that system. It's one of many missions that are being contemplated, certainly, but it would be an excellent delivery system and is in a plane on that low altitude where, frankly, our enemies are not looking today for threats.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the anti-surface picture, that's maintaining below the radar horizon and being able to launch something like a harpoon, if you're familiar with that. It's an anti-ship missile. Putting that on the wing, and then that takes away some of the risk from the carrier air wing who may be taking on that mission prior to would be super cool.
100%. And there's also just the ability to, like, what happens when you have a boat that can travel at the speed of an airplane? Like, for communications networks, you can now instantly set up sort of an ad hoc mesh network wherever you need to go very quickly. And there's obviously been significant investment in USVs recently, and like that makes a lot of sense with the theater, but also USVs are very slow. So we cannot be very reactive. It sort of drives us to have like more reliance on intelligence and forecasting to be proactive, but very difficult to react when your assets can only go 20 to 30 knots. And so when you have sea gliders that can go 160 knots and still have that range, and our hybrid version has that 1400 nautical miles or 1600 statute miles of range, like now we can be reactive and we can look at things, we can do ISR missions, we can react to things, we can create networks to support other things coming out. So like that's the new con ops that sea gliders can enable.
Yeah, and even I've heard you talk previously about helicopters and search and rescue. Like the distances we're talking about, a helicopter is does not have the fuel, does not have the range to go get on station and find these things. But it harkens back to the PBY Catalinas in World War II, and doing that rescue mission, which my great grandpa did that up in the Aleutians, and being able to land in super high sea states and pick up survivors from either a shipwreck or a down pilot. I think is something that needs to be maybe explored a little bit more, other than just like, hey, sorry, you're going to be sitting in a raft for a week because it's contested logistics and we can't get a ship close enough with the helicopter to get close enough to pick you up.
Exactly. And, Tom Huntley, who leads Regent Defense, was previously a Coast Guard rescue helicopter pilot. He's like, you just go there, you're a sitting duck, you're hovering over the water, like you're battling the winds, and you're dropping a basket down one at a time for people who could be injured anyway. So being exactly like you said, it's, how do we have the latest technology so we can do that same sort of con op with the on water support, landing in a sea state, helping people on the water where they need to be rescued in the modern day where we have threats that can see things on the water. So combining that low signature with that rapid speed and response capability with the on-water high sea state landing. So I'm really excited about that mission.
That's awesome. So in terms of the kind of political side, or maybe not political side, but the actual application, a lot of people in government have entrenched views, or even in the military, hey, this is how we did it. And so that's their viewpoint they bring to the table. How are you guys engaging, being like, hey, the war's changed, right? We don't need these platforms. We should invest in new capabilities. We have to develop new tactics and ConOps. Because even that takes time too, to develop an entirely new tactic around a new platform. So how are you
Yeah.
guys engaging to and push that forward?
I'll give at least our stakeholders in the Marine Corps lots of credit. I mean, there's been incredible support from the working level in the lab and the technology group through the operators and even sort of into the COCOMs and operational groups to leadership. Like people are very excited about sea gliders. They get the concept. They see the capability gap in the role. And to us, the question has sort of been like, how does this fit in or convince me? It's been more like, how do you go faster? We want this yesterday. So how can you accelerate the technology? Like, are you guys good on manufacturing? Like, let's talk through the manufacturing plan. Like, Marine Corps wants this. That's part of the reason why we decided to invest and stand up Regent Defense to specifically answer the call, because the call has been clear and overwhelming and consistent. So I'll give DoD a lot of credit for being forward leaning, embracing of new technology. We've been in war games before and put sea gliders in war gaming, and we found the feedback was the sea glider more than any other platform represented better outcomes for some of the ConOps they were doing in Indo-Pac, and we had a 40% better response rate with sea gliders as part of that fleet. So we're getting in the war games, we're affecting the ConOps. We're working with the lab on experimentation of the platform, design reviews, which all feed into a requirement. And we're having great buy-in from leadership, from the Marine Corps and across the service to ultimately, get into those acquisition program and get this into the hands of our warfighters.
That's awesome. What kind of the timeline for low rate production into full scale production? What does that look like?
Yeah, we're standing up our manufacturing facility in Rhode Island right now. So that's 255,000 square feet of manufacturing space that'll come online in early 26. And we're expecting first deliveries to both commercial and defense actually in 2027. So we're getting pretty close here. It's really exciting.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the 2027 line, China, that whole deal. So that's good.
100%.
I think I'm I try and look at companies of whether or not they're going to have an impact in 2 years, or if it's a 10-year timeline, because that nebulous middle ground of like 5 years we may have a product, to me seems you got to either be building for one or the other, the extremely short term or the long term. Otherwise it's who knows what the impact is going to be, and obviously no one knows about what's going to happen in 2027, but
Yeah.
just the fact that they're very vocal, that's interesting to hear that you guys are planning for 2027.
We're pushing as fast as we can to get there for sure. But it's absolutely in sight. Steel's going up in the ground, a few 100 feet away from me right now. It's going to be pretty exciting.
It's great. So on that theme then too, supply chains, it's another thing I talk about a lot. Batteries, the critical minerals. How are you guys looking at your supply chain and getting those batteries? Do you have a US battery manufacturer? Are you working that way?
Yep.
Yeah, thoughts on that?
Yeah, currently, plan is for no China on the vehicle. We currently have no China on even the prototype vehicle right now. We're actually able to leverage a supply chain across batteries and motors. So the things that Regent does, we do the design, aerodynamic, hydrodynamic design. We write all the flight control software. We're going to be building the composites, and all of the structure on the sea glider is carbon fiber composites, but then all of the components on board will be sourcing from the supply chain. So we're very cognizant of these supply chain criticalities and staying outside of China. So batteries we've used to date are Korea, Taiwan. There's lots of plans from some of the main battery manufacturers to create a capacity in the US, which is super exciting. So we're tracking that very closely.
Yeah. Is there anyone right now that is actually building the batteries that you guys have worked on? They just don't have the supply, or is it still we need to start onshoring that to get you guys more capabilities?
Well, I'm always supportive of continuing onshoring of capabilities, but like even some of the big battery groups, and I'm forgetting off the top of my head exactly who, so I don't want to misspeak, but like some of the big, Korean, Taiwanese battery groups are either contemplating or moving forward on plans to put battery manufacturing in the U.S. And even some of our sort of suppliers that are doing the packaging, not just the cells, but even the packaging of the batteries are looking to localize in the US as well. So I think it's a really good time to be in that space from both the EV, and the sort of new electrification demands like electric aircraft, sea gliders, electric boats. There's a lot of pull to bring that to the US. So we see the supply chain reacting accordingly.
Okay, well, that's good to hear that it is starting to react and people are getting the picture a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
kind of Rhode Island itself, a lot of great maritime history, early 1900s, Nat Hair Shop. I'm a big sailor myself. I've been spent 3 summers up in Rhode Island, up in Newport specifically, racing. Are you guys finding that there's a pretty good uh, cohort of naval architects, engineers? I'm sure America's Cup, maybe even engaged with them with their foiling boats now. That's basically everything foiling. Are you guys
Yeah.
leveraging that whole
Yeah. Well,
ecosystem?
yeah. Next time you're in Rhode Island, you're gonna have to come by first off. Would love to give you a tour here. No, it's been one of the big, advantages of setting up in Rhode Island. Like not your typical, not conventionally known as the Silicon Valley of the East per se for a startup, but we're actually seeing a lot of new companies in defense tech and maritime tech coming to Rhode Island. Like I think we were one of the early ones, but we're seeing multiple startups come to town. Anduril's moving in here, building a factory. Saab moved their undersea division here, so it's actually a really exciting time in Rhode Island to be in this sort of defense and maritime tech space. But for us, that is exactly one of the reasons why we came here. It is the sailing world. We have some of the best boat builders, naval architects, composite technicians in the whole world here in Rhode Island. And the vehicle that's out on the water today, the hull, the wings, those were built here in Rhode Island with these local craftsmen, and it's just been really incredible to see that. And we're absolutely going to leverage that capability as we go into the manufacturing. So it's one of the centers of excellence for composites and obviously for sailboat making in the world, and that's been a great tailwind for us.
That's cool. I feel like I keep seeing resurgences. Southern California is like going back to the 1960s with the jet age that was happening there, and it's almost like Newport, that area, Providence is going back to the 1900s, the J class boats. Like all these super fast, super cool monohulls, but instead of monohulls, it's now boiling. So it's just 100 years later almost.
Rhode Island's totally back. And we actually, for that quarter scale vehicle for the Squire, in our first testing, we actually finished integration and did all of our early testing out of the Hirshoff Museum. So it was pretty wild to be building this, futuristic, digitally flight controlled carbon fiber foiling wing and ground thing that like looks like a spaceship. And then you look up and they have that, Hirshoff boat and that multiple time America's Cup champion boat, which looks really old today, but at the time was like revolutionary. And just to sort of see the history of like, you know, innovation has been happening here in maritime for 100 years. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So kind of moving forward, next couple of years, biggest challenges that you guys are facing.
Yeah, well, next up for us is manufacturing scale. So we're going to be flying the prototype here in the next couple months. From there, envelope expansion, high winds, high waves, longer missions, moving away from our test facility here. We'll do a lap around Block Island, stuff like that. We'll get out into the ocean and do some real conditions. So that's all fairly, regimented and planned. So the next step from there is setting up this manufacturing capability and showing we can build multiple of them. We can build them safely to spec, to quality, and that, we can build them at cost and generate return for our investors as well. So that's really the next big step for the business, moving out of that prototyping test campaign into productization, into, rate manufacturing, and then delivering to our customers.
Okay. How's the worker base? Finding people to work factories. You guys employing a lot more automation than usual, or still very much hands on?
Yeah. On the engineering side, initially we had to import a lot of engineering into Rhode Island. So we had the naval side, the maritime side, but we needed flight controls engineers and flight software engineers and aerodynamicists and aircraft designers. So a lot of those came in. We're about 100 people total at the company now. But now I think with the sort of the rising stature and reputation of Rhode Island, that's getting a little bit easier. Obviously, Regent's a little more mature now as well. So we've been getting more and more talent to come in the door. On the manufacturing side, again, we can leverage from that local sort of presence of boat manufacturing in Rhode Island, of composites manufacturing in Rhode Island. So that'll be a great start for us. We're about to get into that hiring campaign into sort of Q4 here and start building up that team to equip and sort of man the factory.
Awesome. Well, I want to keep this down to kind of about 30 minutes just to be cognizant of your time. So are there any big things that I missed that you think are super key to region defense, kind of region craft?
Yeah, well, I guess, in terms of your audience, I'd love to hear, like, is it mostly, is it mostly like active duty and veterans? Is it mostly pilots? Is it mostly, Navy? Like, how do you sort of see your audience? Because there may be something sort of depending on exactly who's listening, that'd be a little more specific.
Yeah. Unfortunately or unfortunately, it's pretty broad. You know, I have a group of venture funds that are subscribers. I have the active duty folks, program office people that are subscribers, and then just general defense tech company subscribers as well. So
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
in kind of baskets. So, feel free to choose whichever one you
Sure.
prefer.
No, that's awesome. Well, I guess I think we've had a successful experience being dual use. So we're investing a lot more in defense right now. We're expanding the product, but we did so, very intentionally at the right time because for our entire history, we've been dual use. We've been, working with the Marine Corps for years. Like this has had clear defense relevancy. But initially, the saying is like startups, distractions kill startups. So like we want to stay very focused. We're building sort of a single product, single SKU. It was this Viceroy 12-seater, 3,500-pound payload vehicle that was all electric and still at that 180 miles range served a real purpose in the Marine Corps doing high-speed logistics missions and doing medevac missions that where that sort of 180-mile range was still very relevant. So I think that's what sort of got us here initially is being able to be dual use and being able to sort of allocate capacity back and forth between commercial and defense customers, allowing our small engineering team to really focus and be pretty resource efficient. We've done all of this and will soon be flying the largest electric flying machine in history, in less than 5 years for under $100 million with a team of about 100. So we've been very efficient and fast in our process. And so now we've decided like this is the right point because we have this convergence of readiness on the region side, proven technical progress on the region side, plus we've been very successful in raising capital, getting commercial and defense contracts, plus this now overwhelming need from across DoD of more capability to do region defense and to start expanding. No longer will the distraction kill us. We've come to the right place, and now we just see this huge market opportunity where we can do that hybridization, automation, multiple sizes on our Squire vehicle as well. So it's just been sort of a cool journey.
That's great. I love to see new ideas that are actually taking shape and people aren't just, throwing them off to the side. So we'll kind of leave it at that. Hopefully we'll see, maybe you guys can kick off a Block Island race week or something with a lap around Block Island once you get.
Exactly. Yes, that would be amazing. We'll grab a mudslide on the way.
Awesome. That's awesome. Cool. We'll leave it there. I'm going to write up the article and it'll probably be in September. That'll kind of co-release maybe some snippets from this, some of your thoughts as part of the article. And then I'll send that over to either Kristen or whoever on the marketing team, or you if you'd like to kind of give it a once over and go from there.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Kyle, it was super good meeting you, and thank you for your service. And you should definitely come out and visit if you're in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I would love to. Hopefully before the winter, or if not next spring, summer.
We'll be out there in the winter too. We'll be testing. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.